It was something shared by Mick, Rebel Without a Pause, and we can see his channel here. And he shares this map of Manhattan, New York, in 1835. Now, that's only 50 years or so after America becomes a country, and it was a really cool map because it shows more or less what's there now. As you can see, you wave this little circle over the top and doing a pretty good job. Here we see a star fort, Fort Columbus. Good old Fort Columbus in 1835. And then we bring the magic glass over the top, and this is what we get. We see artificial land being formed out here, similar to what they show us here in modern times, but we actually see that over here in 1835. So what about over here? We have some Fort Greene, and we bring the magic glass, and it doesn't look very impressive. It looks like they've wiped out Fort Greene. There does appear to be a obelisk or something right here. The footprint still exists. So I suggest you watch his video, and I'm just going to share my little take on it. I thank you for being here. God bless and welcome. So here we are, 1835, and they've already established the grid. They have surveyed a city right off the get-go. Nothing primitive, just getting right to it. We have star forts over here, of course, over here, Fort Wood on Kennedy's Island. And we see the Statue of Liberty. Zoom in a little more. There we go. So the intricacy of the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty is much more impressive than the stupid statue. And the base, or the fort, essentially a fort. 1830 is very important to have a massive fort like this on an island. Most people don't have boats. Boat is a luxury, of course, then and now. In my opinion, you're not messing around with a boat in this time period. You're happy to have a horse and a wagon, and I'm not just joking here. I mean, really. And if you did have a horse and wagon, you're not gonna pull a boat behind it. And here you can see the area we're dealing with. The map pretty much just focusing on this peninsula. And here we can see that map, an aerial view, and just perfect. 50 years? 50 years? I'd like to inject a picture of the back of the $2 bill. What I often call men in tights. Men in tights. 50 years. Come on. I call BS. The forts, the roads, the infrastructure, the canals, both sides, pre-bridges. Well, anyway, following in Mick's footsteps, we're going to look at the border of this beautiful map. Reminding me of a bird's eye view. If you'll have watched one of my past videos, we discussed how some of these maps were made by auctioneers and essentially realtors or realtors, whatever it is. And you see how this has the same hand as our currency, as I think I mentioned in that video. I love this art. Look at the little foliage, grasses. But anyway, these buildings. So here again, 50 years after these men in tights have arrived, we have these too. It's not enough to just lay out the roads and maybe build some log cabins. No, we have Rome in America, depicted right here, depicted always on every coin and dollar, and in this case map. These were here from the beginning. And the men in tights aren't building anything. You don't build in tights. You control and rule and establish in tights. At least back then. I really don't think men have worn tights since then, with the exception of the 80s, certainly if you're a rock star. But even those people aren't building anything, the rock stars. But we can add rocking out to that list. You control and rule and rock in tights, but you don't build buildings like this, or buildings like this, cobblestone roads. The city's ready to go. Here a portrayal of the theft that is about to take place. Looks like some chili peppers. All perfectly symbolic. I believe there's an absolute story within this art. But for now, I just want to focus on these buildings, the way Mick did. Here's the Columbia College, of course. It must look like the White House or the nation's capital. Ah, a castle. St. Thomas Church. How very normal that the church should look like a castle. And look at this side wing. I mean, an apartment building, clearly. But this is it. This is what we get. And this is not me reaching. This is the mainstream telling us, yes, this is your history. 1830. 1830. So you see, it's not shocking that we find ruins just like this in every corner of North America. Every corner, east to west, north to south, and all being this old. But this is important because it's depicted in this old map, adorned with absolutely advanced artwork, almost so perfect that it seems like a computer did it, but too beautiful and soulful and expressive to have been done by a computer. Perhaps today, I don't know. So we move down the line, and you're seeing the edge here. I mean, just unbelievable, the amount of exploration, hundreds of square miles. It's just, in my opinion, in this time period, arriving on boat to shore, you're not straying too far, and you're not doing anything crazy in 50 years. Here, the Episcopal Seminary. I don't even know what that is. I think it's just a school, a church school, castle. Really strange depictions here. A couple controllers. And it looks like a couple people dancing here, like a wild monkey or something. And just mind-blowing. Some stairs going up here, some more stairs. Too much. Too much. For 50 years after the nation becomes a nation. And here we can see a little key of what all of these symbols mean. Here we can see the Star Fort, forts and fortifications, mounds and hills, or things that have yet to be unburied or unearthed. But over here we have the Female Orphan Asylum Castle, Bloomingsdale. But here we see a orphan asylum. 1, 2, 3, 4 stories, plus 5 and 6 in ornamentation. Why? Why? This is the wild, virgin, blossoming country. Here we go. The wild country of America, complete with concrete and metalwork coastlines. A harbor from the battery, of course. And here we see pollution. Looks like couple smokestacks. And are these massive smokestacks back here? They weren't sure if they were going to draw these in, but yeah, already polluting. Like Satan's spawns have landed. And this is the landing on Cortlandt Street. Very appropriate. And we move on, and we see St. Luke's Church. 50 years. The first 50 years. I think I made a video long ago called The First 100 Years. Here we see the first 50. What is this place? Really? Somebody's residence? A giant's residence? Look at these little people. What do they need all this for? Lights and sidewalks and full-grown trees. Rock and roll. 1830. Let's move on. We have a Navy Yard in the background here. I mean, huge. And here is the city from Governor's Island. This reminding me of some old coinage in Europe way back, and we see castles. And in fact, somebody just left me a comment on that coin. I'll try to inject it later. Let us continue. We can see Broadway from the park. Here we go. Just look at this mind blower in the background. But it doesn't matter. It's all of it. Over the top for these people. Who needs to move forward from this point? And yet we would just start demolishing everything at this point. It would just be a high-speed demolition for the next 150 years, rebuilding junk in its place as if you don't appreciate any of it because you really didn't even build it. Here, the Deaf and Dumb Asylum. Couple people out here, couple children running perhaps deaf or dumb. 1830. Of course, a little castle feature. Why would you build anything ordinary or anything close to a log cabin like we're told we're supposed to be building in our early history? And here we can see Barclay Landing. Again, the spawns arriving or landing, immediate pollution, and surrounded by an old world. Everything absolutely perfect. They're all wearing suits. And here we can see the Hall of Justice. Who needs a Hall of Justice? It really seems very fair and just and perfect around here. Here, a couple people going to the hall. What are they thinking? Excuse me, sir. Is this where I can find justice? Oh, yes. You have found the Hall of Justice. Have you been treated unjustly? No, I was just wondering. Thank God. And here a university in Washington Square. Really? Here are the plans for the university, sir. By God, why have you designed a castle? Well, I just thought there were castles everywhere, so I would design a castle. Oh, you have a good point. And yeah, enough of my silly musings. I do suggest you check out Mick's more in-depth video of this map. And next I'd like to move over to this page. Now this is all the stuff we are seeing drawn. I mean, here's what it looks like in reality. All the same stuff in America. This one here is in Romania. So this is a communist classic. And here it says 1900. It's the same stuff that we were seeing on the map. And this kind of architecture typically having a Roman feel, as we know it. A Grecian, Romanesque feel. And in my opinion is the most beautiful architecture in the world. Nothing comes close to it. And it doesn't matter. They would make universities, train stations, and nowadays most of them are museums. If they haven't torn them down. And I hate this name that they've given it. Beaux Arts, or beautiful art. Stupid. Beautiful art architecture. Similar to the Richardsonian Romanesque. Stupid. Giving credit to this man named Richardson. Similar to the word neoclassic or new old. These are not even names. Beautiful art, architecture, evolving from the neoclassic or new old style. Just a mindful. Following the French Revolution, they started the Academy of Beaux Arts. The Academy held a competition in architecture which offered prize winners a chance to study the classical architecture of antiquity in Rome. So essentially no progress, nothing new to offer for over 1,000 years, according to history. Then we're told in Europe they wanted to break away from the old style and architecture from the Middle Ages and Renaissance. This style influenced architecture of the United States in the period from 1880 to 1920. This is a lie because we just saw it in 1830. European architects gravitated away from Beaux Arts, and the Americans, we are told, just started getting into it in the period from 1880 to 1920. Or is this just an explanation for why the same architectural style exists in America? The Americans were simply late in joining the architectural fashion, almost clueless. Here in Belgium, we see the Royal Museum for Central Africa, just for Central. I have to have another museum for the North and South. Here, a triumphal arch in Brussels. It's a lot more than an art. Here, a conservatory in Paris. We can see a couple ghoulish figures here, especially this guy. And here in 6 years, they built this library. This could have been a church, easy. This could have been a train terminal, and we see many of both looking just like this. But in this case, a library. All this for just a few walls of crusty books. Just a little much, that's all. Probably could have been a quarter of this size. And like I said, most of these become museums. They don't know what to even do with them. It doesn't make any sense. And museum is a good way to just shut the people up. They're going to walk inside and look at all the junk and forget all about the building that they're in. Here's some place in Budapest. I'm sure a transportation hub. Very beautiful. This may have looked different in the past. Here, the Peace Palace in The Hague. I once hitchhiked to The Hague and actually made a cardboard sign, handwritten, that said Hague on it, and I got a ride really quickly, within 5 minutes. I later found out that that's home to the World Court. A former post office in Rotterdam and a bridge in Amsterdam. Looks like they've left the tech on top, or maybe that's behind it, I'm not sure. Here we are in Portugal, and these figures are very lifelike. Seems like the same girl. And here the university library. So not even the university, the library. Again, well, they probably have a beautiful museum already in Bucharest, in the communist nation of Romania. Communist classics. You gotta love them. And here in Bucharest, I mean, these buildings remind me of the Gilded Age mansions that we would see in America. No different. This is just some unknown architectural wonder. And let's not leave out Canada. I feel like we just leave out the fur-trapping Canadians all too often. So here we go, looking just as aged as anything in Europe. Who needs to go to Europe when we have buildings like this in Canada? And of course the Alberta legislature building, rivaling any Capitol building in America, but essentially the same style, 100% the same style, the same hand, the same contractor, essentially. And today, building like this is a skill that is almost completely lost. Here, the Thomas Jefferson Building, or the Library of Congress in Washington. A library. Forget about Congress and all that. This is a library. Again, don't be fooled by names. Don't be fooled by time. Here, the Palace of Horticulture in San Francisco. Really interesting of them to throw this baby in here when they tell us this was temporary. But now they just want to throw it in this Beaux Arts category. All proud of it. Proud of their temporary building that they tore down. Buenos Aires in South America. Imagine looking at this on acid. And here the government palace. And really the people resembling the 1800s today. But I think it's perfectly appropriate that they should be in this picture, showing us the means used back in the day, back going to the 1830s as we just looked at, starting out this video, building things like this with horse and buggy, no cranes, just ropes and willpower, as we are told. So I think I'll leave it there today. I'm having an absolute ball, again because I love this architecture, but this research is never done. So for this week, I thank you for joining me. Thanks for just being you. I love you all. God bless, and I'll see you next week.